Welcome to Before You Vote. I'm Mike Broomhead. This CW7 special program is here to help you, the voter, understand the 2024 primary election. We'll be talking with candidates and data analysts to give you insight into who and what is on the ballot. Now today, we're talking about the Maricopa County Sheriff's race. Maricopa County is the largest county in Arizona, and I believe it's the fourth largest in the country. Not only does the sheriff in charge of enforcing laws in the unincorporated areas and supporting local law enforcement in local cities, they also have to make sure you run the jail system in Maricopa County. It entails a lot of staff. Today, we're talking with Democrat Tyler Kamp, who has more than 20 years' experience with the Phoenix Police Department under his belt. Then we talk with Democratic candidate Russ Skinner. He's the current Maricopa County Sheriff who was appointed after former Sheriff Paul Penzone stepped down from the role back in January. Later in the show, we're taking a look at more of the polling data from Emerson College. Find out what Arizonans say about the top issues in our state. It's a show that you don't want to miss. We'll be back here on Before You Vote in exactly 60 seconds. Welcome back to Before You Vote. A big race to Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, biggest county in Arizona. It's also one of the biggest in the country. Joining us is Democrat candidate Tyler Kamp. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely, I appreciate being here.
Asking all the candidates the same basic information to start with. Talk about the job of the sheriff in Maricopa County and what qualities and what you bring to the job that you think qualify you for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. The number one priority of a sheriff is to provide protection and safety to the community. So everything I do as sheriff needs to be viewed through the lens, will this make us safer? Will this protect us more? I'm a fifth generation Maricopa County resident, been here my whole life. I've got family all over the county. I love this county. I care for it. And so just quick background about myself, I think that's important. I've been married for 25 years. I have 4 kids. They all live here. And I worked for the Phoenix Police Department for over 2 decades. I spent over half my career investigating organized crime, investigating homicide, before I started to promote through the ranks. I retired in 2021 as a lieutenant or a shift commander. I was in charge of, when I was at work, I was in charge of a precinct or sometimes 2 precincts at the same time. In 2021, my life changed a little bit. I was asked to work for an organization. It's the largest anti-slavery organization in the world. And my wife and kids, we moved to Ghana in West Africa. And my job there, I was director of investigations and law enforcement development. We actually did rescue operations. We rescued kids that were being trafficked in country across the lake. We held the masters accountable. We arrested them. I also worked with the team. We put together 2 different police academies. We trained the Marine Police how to conduct their own human trafficking investigations and boat interdictions on the lake. We returned to the States approximately a year later, and for this past year I've been working for Goodwill as Director of Executive Protection, Goodwill, and some other local nonprofits. And so I think the job of sheriff is big. It's important. And I believe that I bring the right leadership, the right temperament, which is important, and the right fortitude to continue to build upon Sheriff Penzone's successes and continue to move us forward with integrity, accountability, and effective policing.
Couple of the issues, staffing has always been an issue in law enforcement, not just on the sheriff's department side of it with deputies, but also running the jail system and corrections officers inside the jails as well. How do you think is the best way to handle those staffing issues?
Well, the major issue are these 3 court orders that we incurred under the Sheriff Joe Arpaio regime. And if you're not familiar, in 2013, the sheriff's office was sued for discrimination, harassing people of color, and the federal government won. And so a court order was issued in 2013 that basically provided oversight for the sheriff's office. In 2016, a second court order was issued because the sheriff's office failed to investigate employee misconduct complaints. In 2022, a third court order was issued because those complaints, those employee misconduct complaints, were not being investigated in a timely manner. This oversight has cost the county over $250 million, the taxpayers over $250 million. It's also destroyed the morale within the sheriff's office. it hurts recruiting, it hurts retention, it siphons resources from areas that could be used inside the jails and also on the streets. And so I think first and foremost, the major issue, the major challenge for the incoming sheriff is complying with the court order and then eventually graduating from it.
So how do you make that happen? You know, as you said, it happened under Sheriff Arpaio, but then the tenure of Sheriff Penzone as well, and it still seems as if they're trying to get out from under that. What do you think the keys are to getting out from under that?
You're right. It's an enormous task, but I want to make sure we're clear. This court order was needed back in 2013 because the sheriff's office was out of control, and so it was needed. And so there are a lot of reforms that came from that that are very positive. So some of those reforms I would like to keep in place. It helps keep us accountable. For example, body cameras and being thorough with our employee investigations. That helps build trust with the community. And so I have a background I've executed large projects and I have a history professionally and personally of getting things done. And I think that's important, is to be intentional about tackling these issues, making sure that we comply fully, and then using my experience that I had overseas and also with the nonprofits here locally, building those relationships, working with the monitors to make sure that we comply and graduate from the court orders.
What do you think is the biggest challenge as far as the sheriff's office walking in the door? What is the biggest challenge to that job of being sheriff? Is it the staffing issue and the court order, or are there other things that it faces in that office?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. Clearly, the court order is huge. We have to comply and graduate from that. And with that comes staffing. I think once that's lifted, I think as we build culture, better culture, staffing will improve. But we could also do some things to fill the gaps until that happens. That's important. And that's through community engagement. We always like to talk about force multipliers. Working with the community is a force multiplier. We are collectively responsible for public safety, and I think that's important for us to understand. And we have to do a better job treating the problem and not the symptoms, and that prevents crime down the road.
Well, the office is such a big thing to tackle for anyone, and I always appreciate the time when candidates come in and talk about this. So I appreciate people. I hope they visit your website. There's a lot of candidates in the race, and to make yourself stand out is tough for anyone. So I appreciate the time and the information about your campaign, and we certainly wish you the best.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. His name is Tyler Kamp. He's a Democrat candidate for Maricopa County Sheriff. And make sure you're tuned in here. We're going to get you all the candidates so you're an informed voter. We'll be back. All right. Coming up, have the top issues changed for Arizona voters since the beginning of the year? We're taking a look at the polls next. Then later in the show, Democratic candidate Russ Skinner talks about his campaign for Maricopa County Sheriff. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. It's time for our Tracking Arizona segment. We have more polling data from Emerson College. What are the top issues to Arizonans in this election cycle? Well, at number 3 right now is the abortion issue, coming in at about 12.4%. Then it's followed by the economy at 24.7%. But it's very interesting that immigration has become the number 1 issue at almost 28% at 27.9%. It's fascinating because there have been some bills in the legislature that have gotten to the governor's desk, and she has vetoed them. And what they would do is allow local law enforcement, state law enforcement at the border to enforce border laws. So the legislature is working on something called a CR. It's a continuing resolution. It's HCR 2060. And what this would do, if it's passed through the legislature, it would then go to the ballot in November. And the voters in Arizona would be able to vote to give local and state law enforcement the ability to make arrests at the border involving illegal immigration and people getting fake documents to work. It also gives the courts the ability to sentence people and then deportation and sending people back across the border. Very similar to the Texas law that was just written and is being challenged in the federal courts. This law would stipulate that it only goes into effect if the Texas law stands up to constitutional muster. So this is a huge issue in Arizona, and this is one of the ways the state legislature is maybe putting this on the ballot. We'll find out in the coming days, but it looks like it's going to be on the ballot for you to vote on. Look for that, HCR 2060. Also, President Trump the Trump campaign, he is going through a trial right now, and there's another potential trial that was happening or going to happen that involved documents. That's been indefinitely postponed. But as far as the hush money trial goes, interesting number with independent voters. What would a guilty verdict against Donald Trump, the former president, mean to their desire to vote for him? Would it change the way they do it? 32% here in Arizona said if he's convicted, they're more likely to vote for him. These are independent voters. 25% said they'd be less likely, and 43% say absolutely no impact. So it looks like, at least in Arizona, voters are not as concerned about this New York trial for hush money when it comes to the campaign. They're more focused on the issues. Now, this may change between now and November, which is why we do this Tracking Arizona segment. We want you to be able to have the information, and we're going to track what Arizona voters are feeling about this. It's very interesting, the independent voters. So we'll keep you updated on all of this stuff as it goes on, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this show. We want you to be an informed voter. We're going to do this show now up until the election. So you want to keep it locked here on Before You Vote, and we'll be back here in just a few moments. Please stick around. Coming up, I sit down with Democratic candidate and current Sheriff Russ Skinner. Find out what his plan is for the office if he gets elected. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. As we continue our conversations with candidates for Maricopa County Sheriff, it's only appropriate we talk to the appointed sheriff and Democrat candidate Russ Skinner. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me, sir.
I've been asking all the candidates, and I think yours is a unique position. Can you describe the job of the sheriff from your perspective and what unique qualifications you bring to the job?
Yes, obviously we're the fourth largest sheriff's office in the United States of America. A lot of things unique to a sheriff's office versus a municipal city PD is you're elected as the sheriff, or appointed in my case. But secondly, that we're charged under legislative statutes of what the sheriff will do. We'll provide search and rescue. We run the jails. We support the Superior Court, civil process. We provide patrol services and enforcement, public peace in the unincorporated areas of Maricopa County. So there's a lot of different variations from that. In addition, we run, again, the fourth largest jail system, as we talked about. 7,000 inmates on a daily population, over 80,000 people booked in through these facilities each year. So there is a lot of uniqueness to it. Why am I qualified with it? Well, I've worked for the sheriff's office 34 years. This month will be my 34th anniversary. And again, service that's unbroken. I've been with the office, worked all the facets within patrol, all the facets within investigations, have been in command positions, worked through the Melendrez or federal court order. Also worked in the executive command over the last 7 years under former Sheriff Penzone.
So you brought up some of the things that are going on. Every candidate I've talked to has talked about the sheriff's office and the DOJ and the court order. You're in a unique position because you've worked under it and you've run the office under it. What is it going to take to get the sheriff's office out from under the DOJ court order, and what do we need to do moving forward, and what do you expect that timeline is going to be like if you're elected the sheriff?
Yeah, actually I was one of the first ones assigned to helping with the reforms of the office under the original court order, October of 2013. I've continued to be involved in it in various facets over the last 10 years, and we're approaching the 11th year in October. It's going to take us to continue to understand these reforms and make sure that we have good communication with the monitoring team, but also the parties of the DOJ, the ACLU, and work on just constructive measures to make sure that we're getting the compliance, making sure those reforms, because even after the court order goes away, these reforms were needed for the agency. A lot of reforms that law enforcement is seeing across the nation. Phoenix is obviously facing this. And what it's going to take is just good sense and leadership, communication, and being up in front and talking about the issues, whether we agree or disagree. This is a court order, not a consent decree, which is very different. And making sure that we understand and carry out the compliance measures and put that into practice. We've made great headway under Sheriff Penzone. I want to continue the path. Again, being intimately aware of all the issues relative to it and all the paragraphs associated with it. I know the complexities. This is one of the most complex court orders facing the nation, or facing a law enforcement agency within the nation.
You mentioned the enormity of the job because of how big the county is and the jail system is. dealing with staffing issues. Many agencies, many of them here in Arizona, are dealing with that. How do you deal with staffing issues? What is the key to getting the staff you need with detention officers in the jail and deputies on the road?
Well, it's a couple of factors. The first factor is looking at your current staffing levels and calls for service in the patrol side, but also your detention. Luckily, we're at 7,000 average daily population. Our jail system's built for over 9,000 inmates. We're able to take and constructively look at ways we can reduce the number of footprint on the inmates where they're housed, as well as staffing there. So we're working on measures relative to that. With a patrol, it's the same type of thing. We're seeing other agencies look at areas and I won't say non-essential, but areas that you want to put priority to and making sure it's staffed appropriately. And then into the recruitment and retention. I'm working with the Board of Supervisors. Legislatively, we've looked at reinstating the CORP or the retirement program for correctional officers, but I also am working with county leadership of being more in line with what other agencies. We're fighting, 23 agencies in this valley are fighting for those members to join their force. So we have to be competitive, and those are initiatives I'm moving forward.
One of the issues I've talked with other candidates is the fentanyl crisis has affected every agency. But the former sheriff, Paul Penzone, brought in detection equipment, and it included staff, and it was a little controversial that it included staff. Was that a good idea? Will it continue? And are you able to keep fentanyl out of the jail system?
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. Again, Sheriff Penzone would have told you, he and I had a lot of discussion on this and how it affected the morale of staff or their ability to kind of, hey, let's look at this. What are we doing? Do we not trust our staff? Do we trust our staff? But the reality is making it a safer and secure environment. It has shown to be beneficial. We're continuing the path with that. We've also brought in dogs. They're specially utilized in the jail system, only assigned to the jail system to sniff out fentanyl and other illicit contraband. We are seeing a great return on investment in that the numbers have decreased. Are we going to get rid of it? No, I don't think it's ever going to be eradicated, but we need to mitigate and continue to prevent it. So we continue to progressively train our employees, bring in mechanisms to be able to hopefully detect it prior to it getting infiltrated into our jail system.
Last question. When you look at the challenges of the office, are there things that you're not able to do right now being appointed, or are there things you're doing now that definitely have to continue day one if elected?
Things I'm doing now that continue that day one if I'm elected. The train doesn't stop. This agency doesn't stop depending on what position or what I'm filling at this point in time. Being the appointed sheriff, I told everybody we're still on fast track, and I hope to be able to carry out the mission continuing 4 years after this. For me, it's just a balance of time, effort, running a campaign, but also running the fourth largest sheriff's office, and my priority is the sheriff's office, and I will say that day in, day out, that anything comes up there, that's going to be my priority to respond to. The campaign comes second to that.
Well, I appreciate the time as always. It's an important office. I wanted to get the perspective of the person sitting in the big chair right now. So thanks for doing this, and we wish you well in your campaign.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Sheriff Russ Skinner is his name. He is a Democrat candidate for the sheriff's office. Be an informed voter. We'll be back on Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Thank you to Maricopa County Sheriff candidates Tyler Kamp and Russ Skinner. The primary debate for U.S. Congressional District 1 is this Wednesday, May 15th at 6 p.m. If you live within the limits of this map, CD1 is your congressional district. CW7 will have the debate available to watch online shortly thereafter. Go to cw7az.com/vote. Next week, we're talking with some of the Republican candidates for the Maricopa County Sheriff's race. Thanks again for joining us this week. We will see you again next Sunday right here on Before You Vote. For a list of voter resources, visit cw7arizona.com.